Hola, hoy acabo de mostrar unos videos de una profesora una autora que estuvo ella, es Úrsula Goodenough, que estuvo en el round table final de la conferencia. ¿Ok? Ella parece que este año ha publicado la segunda edición, sí, de un libro que publicó hace 25 años, The Secret Depths of Nature. Bueno, en el video, los videos que acabamos de ver hablaban de eso. Y bueno, ella estuvo en la última round table y ese video, como fue en vivo, no está disponible en YouTube, el round table, aunque les puedo mostrar ahora un poco.
Let me just comment or mention on what I see Ursula trying to do, which just strikes me as the right thing. What she's saying is when you really study nature, you get this sort of religious experience. If it's marvelous to look at how a cell is organized. It's marvelous when and you simply are in awe. You know, I teach at a Catholic university. They talk about the magisterium. Well, to me, there is nothing more majestic than, you know, nature. I can't imagine what's a greater magisterium than that. So this sense of awe and wonder, of reverence, you know, clearly there are things much bigger than myself, and that I'm a part of all of that, and that's my experience of nature. But let's get Abel here.
Que, bueno, que lo que él dice de que uno tiene experiencia religiosa estudiando la naturaleza. Me, me- me gusta, pero ok, les voy a mostrar mi pequeña intervención. Hi, Ursula. Thank you very much for your talk. You reminded me a quote that I love from Alan Watts, which says that we do not come into this world, we come out of it, as
Beautiful.
leaves from a tree.
Mhm.
I mean, I really, I'm really interested in how language. I mean, I think since I read 1984 by Orwell, I realized how language, the way we use words, shape or the way we think, and even the way we behave. And yeah, I strongly believe that the narrative you're presenting is great and inspiring. And
Well, it's fun to
and
talk
yeah,
to.
see,
It's fun to talk to
sorry.
historians about this. Whoops. Everybody, what happened to everybody? I got logged out.
We can hear you. I
Okay,
can hear you.
my whole system went down, but it's back up, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Yeah, it's fun to be talking to historians because the whole idea of big history, and of course, David got this too. He quickly realized that history didn't start in Mesopotamia or something, but started 13 billion years ago. That we are the ones, and then in modern times, we have someone like Carl Sagan who is saying all sorts of wonderful stuff along these lines, including if we're going to have a religious orientation, it has to be based in reality, it has to be based in our story of the universe. And Thomas Berry, there are lots of people who precede me in whose footsteps I'm walking, and lots and lots of books to read. And in my book, I have a very extensive bibliography to take people back to earlier thinkers.
Thank you very much, Ursula.
You're very welcome.
That's all.
Okay.
I like Gustavo's reference about that we don't come into the world, we come out of the world. I always talk to my students about the ancient Maya story of the Popol Vuh. Of course, the Maya cultivated maize, or the Olmecs did, starting maybe 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. And so when you do that year after year, century after century, it's kind of backbreaking work, but you're imaginative and you come up with stories that give meaning to all of that work. And the story of the Popol Vuh, which is their creation account, I think it's marvelous. Just to do it injustice and oversimplification. The hero twins go down into the underworld. They're so clever that they beat the gods of the underworld, and they resurrect the fathers who grow up in the ball courts. The Maya loved ball courts, and they were grassy fields with indented sides on them, and the fathers grew up out of the ball field and became the corn god. So you have the birth of the corn god by the defeat of death in the underworld. And then you had Ishmukane, who's the great grandmother, who took the corn, and after a series of failed attempts by the gods to create humans, because they just never got it right, she took the corn, went into a cave in the mountain, mixed it with her blood, and formed the humans out of that. So the Maya are the people of corn. They're a mixture of corn and blood. That's where we come from. But that ball court is also the place where the heroes are buried, and so it's the place of death, and it's the place of birth in an endless cycle of life, fluorescence, death, and rebirth. Anyway, it's a much better story than what I just told. But that idea that they had, that we come up out of the earth, and that's a religious story, and it worked for 2,000 years for the Maya. There's endless artwork of stories from the Popol Vuh, just like there's endless artwork in European cathedrals. And maybe it still does. I see as Tyler Volk.
So one of the things about, as I said there, the interpretive, the spiritual, and the moral aspects of a religious life, and the spiritual part is historically inevitably accompanied by rituals and art and song and chant and so on, that tell the story in a way that elicits emotions of gratitude and reverence. So there is always art in a religious orientation. And I find a sunset to be good stuff, even though it wasn't made by the human, but it has all the potential for me that the nave in the Notre Dame Cathedral or Machu Picchu has, of eliciting spiritual response.
Just a quick comment, Lowell, that it's not that I have heard many, but I have heard some summaries of Popol Vuh, and this is the best one I have heard. And I had never connected it with that Alan Watts quote. Thank you for that.
I love the story. It's a great story.